Hello, welcome to the Stoughton Godfather Show. I'm your host, Peter Ventresco, and my special guest today is Tom Calter, the town manager of Stoughton, and he's a great guy and a smart guy. And how are we doing, Tom?
Great to see you again.
Great to see you too.
I do love that hat.
Thank you, I do too. It covers up the shiny spots. All right, so I guess we'll get into the budget. I'll get into the nitty-gritty. Well, maybe I'll start the nitty-gritty first. All right, I'm going to go through this letter that was sent out. But anyways, let's see. The municipal operating budget does not... okay. So free cash was used to balance the school department budget, which I'm not a fan of doing that. I thought that free cash was going to be put in escrow someplace to build up our bond rating and for future projects. So what happened here?
Well, let me start, Peter, by talking about, if I may, just the budget process. You know, it's a different process every year. It begins in September. We're giving guidelines by the select board as to what they want the budget to look like. And this year they gave us, they demanded a balanced budget. As usual, we're required by statute to deliver a balanced budget. So that would mean a 3.8% increase for the municipal side and a 3.8% increase on the school department side. They do their deliberations, we do our deliberations. For us, it begins with a budget committee, 4 of us, that go through every single line item on the budget, and with an ear and an eye towards meeting the goals that the selectmen gave us of 3.8%. And we face some difficult challenges, as the school department has faced some difficult challenges that are consistent and similar to other municipalities and businesses throughout the country. The first one is we had to deal with the inflationary impact on services and materials and supplies. And second of all, perhaps most importantly, we have to deal with a labor market where unemployment is under 3%, and therefore salaries are skyrocketing. So as we did all of our negotiations with our 8 unions, as the schools did their negotiations, we were finding that we had a high level, particularly in the schools, of attrition, people leaving. And when you replace people that leave, you typically have to advertise it for 15 to 20% higher than what we were paying. So keeping people and retaining them means we had to look at labor contracts very closely and management contracts very closely. Now to your question. For many years, the municipal side of town government has utilized free cash to balance its budget. That is a no-no.
That's right, I agree.
In municipal government, DOR, DLS, the bonding agencies look at that as a sign of management mismanagement. And so the FinCom, in their wisdom, said that the municipal government is using $2.1 million to balance, free cash to balance its budget. And that we have to pay it down by $300,000 a year, wean ourselves off, which would take 7 years. As you know, my career is in buying companies that are broken and fixing them. And it was untenable for me to think about using free cash at all. So I made a commitment to our board that in this fiscal 25 budget, we were going to remove all free cash. We were going to remove all free cash, no free cash used to balance the municipal budget. And I'm proud to say that we have a 3.8% increase, which was our goal, and there is not 1 penny of free cash used to balance our budget. The schools are a different situation. We are fortunate to have Superintendent Baeta as our superintendent. But I'm going to put it quite simply. He inherited a mess for the fiscal year we're in right now. And he is doing everything in his power to address that situation. And he and I talk daily to find ways we can work together. Now, when you fix a mess, unlike removing free cash in 1 year, because the town budget allowed us to do that, his is going to take several years, maybe 2 or 3 to fix. So as he's dealing with the problems of fiscal 24, which ends June 30th of this year, he has to still prepare a budget for fiscal 25. And as he addresses, and I don't want to speak for Joe, he's very capable of speaking for himself in the school, but as he's approaching fiscal 25 and recognizing where the schools perhaps falling down or not performing to his expectation, he put in place a budget that was extraordinarily high, but it was addressing the school's issues. It was a budget of 15.5%. Now, the school department budget is a line item in the town budget, and we're required to submit a balanced budget. We could not submit 15% and have a balanced budget. So we asked the superintendent and his school committee to examine it line item by line item and see where they can reduce it. And they came up with a number of 7.1%. But that would require a supplement of $1.7 to $2 million in free cash to balance it. And so the Board of Selectmen the Select Board made a policy decision that they would support Joe's recommendation and the school committee's recommendation, because they are the smartest people in the room when it comes to education. But it's going to ultimately be up to town meeting if they want to use free cash to help balance the school department budget. And town meeting will be completely briefed before town meeting to know what the specific issues are, because the school committee and the superintendent are committed to doing that. Back to the town side, we're very happy with our 3.8% budget. We've increased services, we've reduced joint costs, and we've reduced headcount by 6 people. And we did that by eliminating 11 positions and adding 5 FTEs, full-time employees, for a net negative of 6 new employees moving forward into the next fiscal year. Those those positions are strategically targeted to either improve services or decrease cost for the town. Let me give you one example of that. One of the positions is a purchasing manager. Today is that purchasing manager's second day. Today we saved $67,000 with that person's efforts. So that position is one not to improve service, but to buy things more competitively to save money. That's the process we went through in the town budget. It was a 5-month process. It was over 200 hours examining every line item. And so the letter I wrote to the community and put in the town crier and on my Facebook are dealing with the unusual challenges caused by inflation and wages that we haven't dealt with in years past. But we've ended up with a solid budget. We're looking forward to the Finance Committee meetings in the month of February, where they can ask questions on every single line item, and we'll have solid answers in response to those questions.
Yeah, but then we have a person doing I always thought we had a purchasing agent for that reason, to buy things at a cheaper rate. But what you're saying, we didn't then.
Great question. So people have to differentiate between procurement and purchasing. Procurement are the procurement laws of Massachusetts that are very strict as to how municipalities can buy things. And obviously the law came from 100 years ago when there was a lot of graft, and so controls were put in place. We've got an extraordinary procurement manager. Fran has never allowed us to get in trouble in terms of how we buy things, how we follow Massachusetts procurement law. We have what's called a state purchasing contract, where vendors get pre-approved in order to sell to municipalities. The last 2 weeks, we went to that contract to hire a painting contractor to paint the 2 stairways on both ends of Town Hall. The lowest price we got off the state contract was $42,000. So Fran and our new purchasing manager, purchasing is finding the lowest and best price for the value that you buy. They went outside the state contract. You're not required, it's done for convenience. And we put it out to bid with private contractors. We hired the guy today. You know what the price is? $12,000 versus 40.
So the municipalities could have been doing that all these years?
There's not a municipality that I'm aware of that has a purchasing manager. Municipalities are programmed to just go off the state contract because it's legal and it's more convenient. What we're doing now, under Fran's direction, the purchasing manager works for Fran, is to make sure we not only do it legally, but we buy it competitively. So we bought two vehicles today for the DPW that were approved by town meeting. We were going to pay $160,000 based upon the quotes we got off the town contract. We got them for $128,000, not $160,000. We were doing a retrofit on one of the older but in good shape recycling trucks to put a hook on it like a crane. We got a quote off the state contract for $101,000 from a company that's done work for all the municipalities. We put it out for a private bid, $41,000.
Yeah, but I'm going to go back to what I kind of alluded to a minute ago. So this could have been going on years ago.
Sure, it could have.
And why didn't they? I mean, that always bugged me that we had to go into a certain list by the state and always pay, well, probably the same way as buying buying fire trucks. Then what you're saying, we can go out of the system and get it for a lot less.
And that's what the town of Stoughton does from this point on. But it's a new position. So I'm going to have to defend that position.
Okay.
At
Well,
town hall.
if I was against these new positions, but if this person's going to save us that kind of money,
In
I'm
the
all
sec-
for it. Well, the other follow-up question on
In
this
the second day.
painter, they have to pay the prevailing wage.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So Peter, you asked, why didn't we do this in the past? And I'm going to answer it this way. Out of the 351 communities in Massachusetts, I doubt very few, if any, towns purchase strategically, like we purchase strategically. The town's priority in the past, up until yesterday when this person started, was to procure things in line with state contracts, and we have the best of the best of doing that. Based upon the year I've been here, Fran and I have talked about how we can make money when we spend money. And Fran was 100% on board. She helped select this candidate, and we are now operating more like a business where our objective is to save money for the good of our shareholders than it is like a municipality where people just kind of have always done it that way. Stoughton is famous for embracing customs, the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
So are most municipalities. When the board hired me, I made clear to them that my background is in running companies and buying broken businesses, and so it's going to require their support on dramatic change. And these changes are what caused us to go from using $4.5 million in free cash, in subsidies, and $2 million in free cash to the fiscal 25 budget, where there are 0 subsidies and there is 0 free cash.
All right, so now that you're talking about these 6 new positions, run through them one by one. Okay, so we got this procurement officer out of the way, purchasing agent. What are the other 5?
Well, let's talk about the full-time positions. There are part-time positions like enforcement officer.
Well,
and
these
things like that.
new positions, they're going to be full-time positions.
No, not all of them. We got FTEs, full-time equivalent. Some are half-time, some are full-time.
All right, so let's get to the full-time ones, then we'll go back to
Okay, do you have a list of them? Because I didn't prepare.
No, I don't know what the list is.
As the viewers may know, Peter doesn't tip anybody off as to what he's going to ask about, so I don't have the list of names. But I can do it. I can do it from memory.
Yeah, I know you can.
The first one is the purchasing manager. The second one is a wellness coordinator. Let me explain what that is. I'm the father of a police officer, a police sergeant, and of an EMS captain in downtown Boston. Anybody who's got police and fire in their family know that they face stresses and situations that we don't see in a lifetime. They see on a daily basis. You also know, if you have friends or family that are police or EMS, they don't talk about it. And that oftentimes leads to an unhealthy lifestyle. As you know, we lost one of our dear police officers suddenly in his 40s a year ago. Only after his death did we learn that he was struggling and was not getting the help he needed. And the wellness program is an effort for the town of Stoughton, following that officer's passing, to be proactive in terms of supporting and assisting our police and fire professionals to live a healthy life, from diet to fitness to ongoing counseling with regard to positive lifestyles, financial management, any type of obstacle, families' challenges associated with working midnights. My son works midnights. He's faced many challenges as a result of working midnights. Had very few people to talk to about it that understood what it's like to work midnights when nobody's around. And as a result, it's not the only thing, but he's going through a very difficult divorce. So it's our attempt to support our police and fire to prevent them from going down a difficult path and as a result of not dealing with the challenges and the stresses of their job. Now that's different than peer support. Peer support is when somebody is in difficulty already and they need immediate support. Right. Now we already provide that through Norfolk County, but we're trying to get out in front of that proactively and help our police and fire remain healthy and strong and effective and have a productive career and not face difficulties that we can help them deal with. So that's what it's about.
All right, this is what I heard. How reliable, I don't know, but I'm going to take it as being reliable. A lot of the police are not in favor of this. And maybe I could see their point because they're going to be talking to somebody they probably know. And so that being said, if that's the case, then it's not going to be the program you're hoping for. Or maybe it'll work out better if, like other surrounding towns had the same program, that people from Stoughton could go to see the person in the next town.
Well,
and vice versa.
People in Stoughton aren't going to go proactively anywhere. We have to make the program available to them. In the next year, we'll be hiring 14 young, brand new police officers. The old police officers, like my son, he's been on 17 years, he's not going to, by choice, go to anybody. Police are wired to keep it to themselves, suck it up and deal with it, and it's not healthy. So it's in us creating programs. If we get one police officer at a time to join a wellness program, then we'll call that victory. But I think it's irresponsible for us as a town to not provide that support system for them.
Okay, what's the next one?
I'm trying to think. I didn't know you were going to test me on the new positions. There is a...
Geez, now you sound like you're at my age.
I'm not far off. The other one is a new person in human resources. As you perhaps know, we have a 2-person human resource department. That 2-person department does everything that would be in a traditional human resource department, but they also do the payroll, the benefits, the health insurance, the retiree communication for all of the 1,000 school employees, those 2 people. And that is absolutely unsustainable. By way of example, both of them had COVID last month. They came in Wednesday night at 10 o'clock at the height of COVID to do the payroll, because if they didn't, nobody else knew how to do it. The schools wouldn't have been paid, the town wouldn't have been paid. Again, it's high risk. If one of them got sick or quit or wanted to take a vacation, Deanna, the person who runs the department, hasn't taken a full week off in her 33 years.
Well, so with the school's budget, Town Hall is doing the school payroll.
Correct.
And why is that?
My question exactly. Their human resource department is brand new. They just started.
Where, at the high school, at the schools, or
for the school department?
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, it's a brand new department headed up by a brand new assistant superintendent, and they're just
fine. Wait a minute, that's brand new H&R? No.
Yes.
All these years, with the big amount of people they have working for them, they never had an H&R person there?
That's, to my knowledge,
that seems hard to believe.
This is the first assistant superintendent of human resources running that whole department. And he, I'm told, has got a couple of staff people. They're brand new. I think it was a wise decision. But we either have to get help to continue to do that work, or the schools have to take over that work, and then we don't have to hire anybody.
Well, it seems to me that we should be charging the schools for that, whatever amount of time the employees under you are
Well, that's what the whole discussion that I generated in the joint meeting with the school committee about the joint cost account is, there's lots of things the town pays for the school. The town pays for crossing guards. The town pays for school resource officers, not the school. And my argument has always been that those should be in the joint cost account. But Selectman Cavey and the chair of the school committee, Catherine, have formed a joint committee to work on those issues collaboratively. And we'll deal with them before the next budget season. But that's been the custom of Stoughton for a long, long, long time. It's just not good business.
All right, this position you're talking about, is he the information person?
No, the person hiring. No,
Okay, so that's okay.
The person we're talking about hiring would be doing payroll.
Okay, so the next position's out there is some kind of an information person that's going to have a website.
Thank you for that, Peter. Yeah, you're triggering it. That's the fourth person. This is a big imperative, Mr. Gito, and I couldn't agree with him more.
With him?
With Mr. Gito on this position.
Oh.
The schools have got a information officer, Mr. Pickett, who's a very, very solid communications professional.
Yeah, I know him. He's good, yeah.
And they communicate very effectively with their parent population. And so the superintendent is able to keep them informed through daily communications, by following up on questions, by anticipating issues or challenges. The town doesn't have such a person. And so what Mr. Gito is seeking, and again, I support his request, is that we have a communications person who's communicating full-time to the students. I wrote this letter to town meeting members expressing 3 pages, outlining every element of our budget, so there was good information when we brought it to town meeting. This was my attempt at solid communication. Facts are friendly. When reasonable people are looking at the same data, they typically reach the same conclusion. In the absence of this letter, people will draw their own narrative and other people will fill in missing blanks. So the communication person is all about making it a full-time job of communicating with our stakeholder groups, taxpayers, citizens, public officials, public leaders, town meeting members. It can't be an event. It's got to be an ongoing process of communicating good information. Now, you may ask, why these positions? Whether it's purchasing, whether it's payroll, whether it's communication. I think there was one more we talked about. If we're going to hire those people, we have to find savings somewhere else to pay for that, because we're not just going to increase the budget. That's what government usually does. The difference between us and the federal government is they can just keep adding as much money as they want and make more money. We can't tax people more money. I'm a fiscal conservative. I don't believe in overtaxing. I just don't, and I never have, and I never will. So if we're going to add strategic positions that help us communicate better, help us purchase better, help our law enforcement and EMS remain healthier, then we got to find a place to pay for it. So we went to Regional 911, which allowed us to eliminate 10 positions, $1 million a year. We couldn't make these investments at 3.8% increase in the budget without making those management changes. When our VNA director moved on, Janice,
Yep.
we didn't hire a director. We just elevated somebody within the organization. So we eliminate that 6-figure salary. There are other positions in recreation. People left. We're not replacing them. So I got a question today from town meeting. There are 2 positions we've eliminated. One was this is a very important point, Peter. One was a fleet manager. We've got lots of trucks and vehicles on the road that we don't have or didn't have a consistent program for how we made decisions on buy, sell, repair, lease. And we had it in the budget. I think it was for $80,000 to hire a fleet manager. We couldn't find anybody at $80,000 to do that. So we're adding it as a stipend onto a working foreman's current job. It'll cost us $7,500. We've eliminated that position in the budget. We had a position in the budget in this year's budget for facility manager. We own lots of buildings, and they need to be kept up. And right now, it's like an add-on to DPW, right? But we're always dealing with crises. We're not being proactive. If we're going to keep this 150-year-old town hall viable, it's got to be maintained. We couldn't hire anybody at the $85,000 salary, so I eliminated it. And we're going to add a substantial stipend onto an existing senior manager responsible for the maintenance of our buildings. So both of those full-time positions, along with the insurance and the benefits and the vacation time and the retirement cost of living, are all gone, and we're going to have existing senior managers do those jobs.
All right, getting back to these 6 jobs. Okay, the one that's procurement, finding these purchasing agent, I could see paying her, and the budget's going to go up a little bit because of that job, but she's going to more, or he is going to more and pay for themselves, so it's going to save the town a lot of money.
Right.
But this information officer, okay, in the schools, I could see that because they have a bigger budget, and there's a lot more people involved, parents, that are going to be on that site all the time. On the municipal side, there's not that many people who are going to be plugging in to see what's going on. You already have people plugging in daily to see what's going on with the next meeting, blah, blah, and this and that. But it's a small group. I don't even think it's going to be 5% of the population.
Same with parents, Peter.
And that same group is going to be the same one. They might hit your site 2 or 3 times in a day. So it might look like there's a lot of people hitting, but it's not. So I think this job, to me, is like a waste of time. That information still gets out, like on the town crier. She gets a lot of information out there, what's going on with different meetings and stuff like that. And you can pile on more work on somebody like that that's part-time, and it doesn't involve health insurance or pensions and all that kind of stuff, so the town would save money. To me, I think this sounds like a job like it's being created for somebody. I hate to say it,
well,
for somebody that's already in mind for this.
So I'm sorry to hear you say
I'm
that.
against that kind of a job. Also, one of the duties of this guy is going to be, this person, is going to be if there's a bank robbery or whatever happens at the fire station, he can't release that information until he goes to either one of the chiefs. And then they're going to have to let the information out to make sure, or then he can do it afterwards. But he's got to make sure what he's putting out is going to be right. So myself, I don't see any need for this guy. I think it's a waste of money.
Well,
that's just my feeling, and that's the only way you can keep the taxes from going up is not creating more jobs. If the less the job is going to save money, fine. This position, to me, does not save a penny.
Not everything is about money. So you just
it is as far as the taxpayer goes.
Peter, my budget's 3.8%. I've eliminated 11 jobs and added 6. We have a net negative new hires, and there are. Let me. You just made my case. Actually, there are a heck of a lot more citizens and taxpayers of Stoughton than there are parents of children. Okay, it's 10 to 1. There are a lot more stakeholders that are citizens that are not engaged with the town.
Yeah, but most citizens don't get involved in day-to-day or month-to-month activities in the town where the parents of school children.
So we have to ask ourselves why, right? I hear all the time. We had 5 hearings on rubbish and solid waste.
Yeah, I was there.
You were at all of them. And then we took the advice and counsel of our citizens and tailored a program to their liking. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Our phone rang off the hook for weeks, dozens of calls a day. We know nothing about this. So is that because they're not listening or we're not communicating?
Well, that could be on this new position that you're creating, the information person. But then people are still not going to go on that site to see what's going on.
I'm not talking about a site. There are lots of ways of communicating. Oh. We're having a...
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say. People, when it comes to municipal, there's not that many people get involved. Unless somebody gets, like some screwball like me, gets on Facebook and starts riling everybody up, that your rubbish is going to cost you a lot more and they're going to pick up less. So that hits everybody in the pocket. So that's the issue that's going to get people out.
I hear you. In the absence of communication, people fill in their blanks and they create their own information, or they go to the breakfast shop and they hear it from the people at the next table, right? It may or may not be accurate. We view it as our responsibility to effectively communicate with people who are paying our bills. That's our obligation. And if they don't take advantage of that, that's certainly their choice. But it doesn't take us off the hook from communicating factual information, because if we don't give them factual information, as you well know, they will fill in the blanks. And then all of a sudden we get a narrative that's nowhere near the reality. I can't tell you the information that I have to dispel every single day because people don't have the proper information. Tomorrow night, we're hosting a downtown housing forum.
I was there last night.
Okay? A downtown housing forum, and the keynote speaker is the most well-known and highly decorated public official in the Commonwealth, former Secretary of Housing, Jay Ash. He was the former town manager who took Chelsea out of receivership. We have sent 3 emails, 1 written invitation, and a follow-up phone call to every single town meeting representative, because all of them are going to want to know and give input, as they should, as to what the downtown plan should be. I'm embarrassed to tell you how many RSVPs we have for tomorrow night. And there are people that are going to tell me they didn't know, in spite of these multiple outreach. And then we're going to go to town meeting with a plan for downtown development, and they're not going to know anything about it because they didn't come to the forum. And I blame me for that. If our multiple emails, save the date, reminders, and invitations aren't hitting the mark, then we've got to find a way to communicate that is hitting the mark. And the only model we see, and that Mr. Gito sees when he recommended this, are communities that have a public outreach coordinator that proactively reaches out to every segment of the community. The website is only one vehicle out of many. There can be forums at the COA. There can be information sessions that we have all the time. I'm going to have an information center for all town meeting reps on the FY25 budget. If 20 people out of 160 come to that, they'll be informed. The other 40 will ask those questions on town meeting floor. But it's our job to make sure we get facts out there so people can make informed decisions. And by the virtue of those that are showing up, even those who have been elected to represent their precincts, that suggests we're not doing a good job of communicating. And we have to own that, and we have to fix that.
All right, getting back to this information person, even if he's there putting the information out where, the majority of people are still not going to see it. I mean, on the town crier, that's out every week on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Okay, everybody doesn't see Facebook, especially a lot of the older people, for whatever reason. Okay, so I think you'd get better.
That's exactly my point.
Information out to the people rather than go through all this. Is put a full page in the suburban.
You know the cost of that?
But you're going to get people, if that goes to everybody's house.
So you'd agree.
But in the end of the year, it's going to be cheaper than this, and it's going to be in the hands of more people.
Oh, I bet you can put. You'd agree we have to communicate better.
Yeah, but this isn't the answer.
So, I mean, we could, and that's your opinion. You're entitled to that.
It's a lot of people's
I'm
opinion.
the chief operating officer.
It's a lot of people's
I'm the
opinion.
chief operating of the operation, and you judge me on the decisions I make, as you should. At the end of the day, if I'm not making the right decisions, you should tell the selectmen to fire me. But the buck has to stop with someone as to how we manage the town in an efficient way and how we communicate in a proactive way. My passion is to communicate with the people of Stoughton. We can have an honest discussion and even an agreement or disagreement about what the best mechanisms are. That's very fair. But as long as we agree that we have a need to communicate better, then we can have an honest discussion about what we need to do to communicate better. And if I'm not finding that way, I should leave and have somebody else here, because I know it's my obligation. Not everything is financial, like the purchasing manager. I know it's my obligation to meet people where they are so that we can share good information about their taxpayer dollars. And by virtue of the turnout for the last 20 years, it's an indication that the town's not communicating effectively. So we have to find a way, and that is Mr. Gito's objective when he promoted this position. And I can't disagree with him. And I'm not bashful about admitting that we're not doing a good job of communicating. In spite of our trying, people aren't hearing it and people aren't participating in it.
All right, I'm going to just say one more question to you on this, and then we'll move on. Truthfully, do you think the information will go out there better in the suburban shopper or through this site?
Why is it either or? I can name
because it's going to get to the suburban shopper.
I can name 25 other means of communication
then,
that are better than the suburban shopper and better than the town crier.
Well, what are they besides this job here?
Public information centers, public information sessions. We go to the COA. We go to where people are. We go to the library. We go online exchanging daily, evening, nightly communications about issues of the day. That I can try and do that at 9 o'clock at night when I get home, but that's a full-time job communicating. We use the not suburban shopper, we use the town crier. Suburban shopper is extremely expensive. We use the town crier to get messages out. We know that reaches only a small population of people. Communication is not an event. It's an ongoing process where we have to meet people where they are. They shouldn't have to come to where we're advertising or where we're communicating. We have an obligation to meet them where they are. And if there are seniors that mingle at the senior center on Fridays to play gin rummy, we should go meet those 20 people after they're done and speak to them about issues of the day. That's an ongoing obligation.
Boy, we're running down to 19 minutes. The way we're going, I got enough questions here for
Ask me the toughest ones.
The last, now until Christmas. The other one I'm not really happy about is you got 2 water superintendents. Why?
We don't have 2 water superintendents.
Well, you got one that's equivalent.
We've got a superintendent of water and sewer, and then we've got assistant superintendent, one for sewer and one who handles water quality and water construction. So it's 2 assistant superintendents and 1 superintendent.
Really?
And the answer...
I thought it was just 1, now we got 2.
We have 2 assistant, not 2
Yeah, okay,
water
2 assistants, yeah. But
okay, 1 for sewer, 1 for water, okay? We know that we can't replace, we just went through it, the superintendent of water and sewer with a man or woman who's a highly educated engineer who knows the Stoughton system inside and out. Our director has resigned twice because he was offered way more money than he makes here. When we really got to it, it wasn't about the money. It was about him being on call every hour of every day, 7 days a week, for water and for sewer.
yeah, but that's part of the job.
No, it's not. Not to be on call 7 days a week, Peter.
Well, how do the other superintendents do it?
Which ones?
The ones that he...
They all left. They're all gone.
Yeah,
they either
retired.
retired or took another
Yeah,
job.
but how'd they do it? I don't know if anybody took another job in the superintendents.
Peter, I was in the emergency response business for Clean Harbors for 13 years. We never kept people on call 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, unless you want them to leave. And that's what was happening. So we're not hiring new people. We're promoting them, we hired one, promoted another into the position. It's to structure the business for success. We're now making enough money to afford it. We're not subsidizing it. It's just good management. I mean, we can continue to do it by the seat of our pants. But I think the water and sewer service to the citizens of this town is important enough that we shouldn't have one guy and that if he leaves, we're in trouble. I think that's irresponsible. So in my judgment, they're two good investments. We're paying for them. We're not borrowing money from the general fund. We're not subsidizing it. We're not asking for free cash. We're running it like a business because it is an enterprise fund.
Okay, so we went through why'd you send the free cash over to the school budget?
I didn't.
Well, well,
We're not using free cash. What town meeting?
that $2 million that went to the schools, wasn't that taken out of free cash?
It hasn't been taken out of anything. Town meeting has to endorse that.
Oh, so
In the budget, the schools are using free cash to balance their budget. We didn't send anything over. We've stopped the use of free cash in the town budget. The school budget is a very, very different budget.
Yeah, but I thought,
Maybe we're dealing with semantics. We didn't send anything over is my point.
so otherwise the $2 million that everybody's saying went to the schools is still in free cash.
We don't have any free cash today. We spent it for last year. The new free cash is going to be certified in February. Let's say we have $5 million. The budget begins July 1st. What the schools are asking town meeting to do, and it has to go through the FinCom first. What the schools are asking town meeting to do is allow the schools to balance their budget. I don't know the exact amount. It's between 1.7 and $2 million with the use of free cash. Otherwise, they have to further reduce their budget down to 3.8%. That's the alternative. And that's a town meeting decision. What we did in the municipal side is retired any use of free cash in our budget because we have no subsidies, we have no structural deficits, we have no need for free cash.
Yeah, I see that here. But then I think you alluded to it earlier. Selectman Gavey and somebody from the school side to get their budget down from whatever it was down to 7 something. It was because we were shifting $2 million over to them.
It's a recommendation to town meeting. Town meeting will make the
So
call.
that money, so if the finance committee and the town says no, then the schools are in trouble then. for that
Then
$2
the
million.
schools have to bring their budget down to
Well, that's
3.8%.
okay. I hope that's where it goes, because to me, that's where it should be.
Sure.
Okay, so then, let's see, how do we, okay. So, how do we look to stay under the 10% ceiling and not to get it down to like, go below 4%?
On what, Peter?
On the budget. Every year, isn't there a ceiling? The budget goes up every year. We went from, I don't know what it was, we went up $9 million over last year, so we're at $130 million plus dollars. So that 10% ceiling goes up the higher the budget amount.
Yeah, that went up because
But
of,
that 10% is for money as far as you're borrowing to do things, but you should keep it 10% and below. But also, you don't want to go below the 4% ceiling on the low end, because that's got a lot to do with bond issues, right? So then the other question to that is, department growing faster than the budget.
So let me be clear. We can only increase the budget by 2.5% of the levy.
Plus growth.
Plus growth. Okay, that gives us X amount of dollars. In this particular case, it would have given the town 3.8%, which is a smaller budget, and the school 3.8%, which is a larger budget. Anything over 3.8%, there's no revenues for at all. Now the town generates, let's define free cash. There's nothing free about it. The town generates anywhere between $3 to $5 million a year in surplus cash spun off by town operations. The largest one is the receipts for ambulance, $2.5 million. But then there's other receipts as well that we get through municipal operations. The school also contributes about $300,000 of that $5 million through Medicare reimbursements. So when we start our budget process, we know what we can spend. Anything over what we can spend, which would be 3.8% on the school side, 3.8% on the town side, has to come from somewhere. We can use the surplus cash generated from town operations, but we usually use that for capital expenditures. So if we use it in our operating budget, we're not, but the school is going to need it. Last year, the town needed it. If we use it in municipal operations, then we don't have it available for capital investments like police vehicles or road infrastructure or water infrastructure. That's what we usually use free cash for. When you talk about bonding, it's when we use free cash in our operating budget that the bonding agencies view that as an indication of higher risk. If they view that as an indication of higher risk, they charge more money for borrowing. So as we look at a addition to the police station and a new South school, the cost of money is very important to us. So if we're at 3% and the schools are at 3%, and we're not using free cash, our cost of borrowing will likely go down. Our bond rating will go up, and our cost of borrowing will go down. If we're using free cash in an operating budget, any operating budget, then the risk goes up, therefore the cost of borrowing goes up. Now, that's why it was so important to me to not take 7 years to stop using free cash to balance the budget. And so people say, geez, you join 911, it's just a money grab. No, 911 is the best of the best in the world, regional 911 for communications. And regional 911 is going to invest $10 million in capital communications equipment. But most importantly, we save $1 million a year. To me, that's a business approach to running our business and to serving the taxpayers in the most responsible, fiscally conservative way possible. The way you do that is by protecting your bond rating. Because we borrow so much money for schools, 1 percentage point difference can be the difference of whether you can fund it over 20 years or 30 years.
Yes.
And you save tens of millions of dollars. I think that's what you're referring to there.
Yeah, because if you go up over the 10%, then the bond rating is going to be much higher. Mm-hmm. But also, if you go down below the 4%, it still screws up your bonding.
Right.
But so, are we on target to stay under that 10% all the time?
I'm not sure where I'm tying out the 10%. If we spend more than we're authorized under the levy or with new growth and free cash, if we spend more than that by using free cash, then we're at risk. There's no question. But you know what? I would defer to the superintendent and the school committee because they're going to brief town meeting members on what the risk is of not going to 7.2%. And they're the experts in that area.
Oh, lower from the 10 to 7?
I'm not sure where the 10's coming from.
Oh.
They had put in a 15.5% increase, and then they lowered it to 7.1, I believe.
All right, so we'll move on then, because I'm jumping all over the place now to get some questions.
You're looking at the clock.
Yes. FY25 operating budget forecast an additional $500,000 in new revenue needed to fully fund the rubbish removal service.
Right.
A rate adjustment will be considered in November
Right.
2024. Boy, that's another big hit.
No, it may be down, Peter. The rate may actually come down.
Well,
we promised, you were in the
forecast,
meetings.
it says additional.
We promised.
Additional doesn't mean it's coming down.
Let me see. Well,
That's number 3.
Well, we don't know is the problem. An additional. No, it doesn't say that.
Yeah, it does.
The FY20 operating budget forecasts an additional $500,000. That additional
new revenue.
$500,000 is new revenue as
okay.
resulting
So I
from the
missed
rate
it.
increase.
Okay.
Needed to fully fund the rubbish removal services. A rate adjustment will be considered in November of 24.
All right, I misunderstood that. I
So
thought you were
let me
gonna go up-
explain that.
Okay.
You voted, you helped pass it. We were at a structural deficit of over $500,000 in the rubbish program.
870 something.
Yeah, that may be the exact number. And so we put in place a new rate that we thought we would get to break even. But then we said we're going to offer seniors a huge discount. And they can opt out and do private rubbish service. So we don't know what the exact number is that's going to come in because we don't know how many people are going to apply for the discount. A lot of people are. But what we do know is that we're not going to have a structural deficit. Therefore, we don't have to use free cash.
Okay.
We're not going to tax people twice. They agreed to the rate increase to get us to break even. Now, the rate adjustment in November, we promised people when you were there that we will look at this again in November when we have the final numbers. And if we collected more money than we needed for rubbish, we'll adjust the rates down.
Okay. All right. Illegal immigrants stayed in hotels. Should the town charge them extra money? Because now it's going from a nightly room, flipping, to permanent housing for a year or two. So what do you think of that?
So right now, the Sinestra is housing, as of today, and we have a conference call on this issue at 4 o'clock today with the state. As of right now, the Sinestra is housing 139 families. The Hampton Inn, 77 families. And
So what's a total? How many families?
there's about 200 families, a few more than 200 families, probably 210 families. And there are 90 new students as of this morning, a total of 90 students. There's some information that needs to be shared. In 1983, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts passed a law called the Shelter-in-Place Law.
Yeah, I got that whole thing written out here.
There you go.
But I'm going to read it at another meeting.
Yep, and it makes a guarantee as a Commonwealth that nobody in Massachusetts has to live on the street. Now, clearly, the law did not anticipate this overflow of migrants into the Stoughton community. But the state has interpreted that as we have an obligation to house people. It doesn't stipulate that they must be citizens of Stoughton or citizens of the Commonwealth or citizens of the United States. That's the state's interpretation. Now, I want to say something about Stoughton. You know how many calls I've received, nasty calls, about the migrants in Stoughton?
I don't know.
The answer would be 0.
I find out hard to believe, but I'll believe you.
And the superintendent said he has received 1. So the people of Stoughton have been very gracious, very kind, very welcoming, and they didn't create this problem. Stoughton is not being treated fairly by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, by the Healy administration. And I'm a Democrat who worked to help this administration be elected, and I'm saying that publicly. 2 things are wrong about this. We're in the top 6 in terms of communities that are the host communities. Yeah. We're the only town in that top 6. The other are large cities. Now, that's one thing. Somebody's got to be the top town, right? And I guess that happens to be us. But we've had these guests, residents, September, October, November, December, and January. We received our first payment from the state last week, and it was only $43,000.
There you go.
The state is paying for the housing directly. They're paying for the food directly, and they pay the town $104 a day for each one of the migrants. So they're paying for them, but it's only as good as when you get paid.
Yeah, but we got 3 minutes, so let me get a little bit into this here. Okay, the state also pays $104, which you already said, for schooling. But out of that $104, it's $55 a day. You're going to bust them, so that cuts it down to $49. So now you're going to have to hire all kinds of teachers. They're going to teach them from their language to English. What's that going to cost us? You know what I mean? And you got to feed them.
We're not feeding them, Peter.
Huh?
We're not feeding them. The state pays to feed them.
Out of that $100 and some odd dollars?
No, the state pays.
Yeah, they're going to pay the hotels where they're at to feed them. But when they come to school, you're not going to give them lunch.
Sure.
Yeah, so you're going to feed them.
Thank you for that.
Okay, but also, like Taunton's having all kinds of trouble. They get police calls. 20 out of 20, the average is 20 times in 40 days and going up. Okay? And on the statistics I looked up on the internet, there's more veterans last year being homeless because of what's going on. And there's a lot of young kids out there being homeless.
In Stoughton?
No.
Oh, I see.
In the state. And there's a lot of families for the first time in years that are out in the streets. They are being neglected for the sake of these immigrants. which I think is wrong. We should be taking care of our own first, our veterans, our families that are out in the street. Why are we, and then we're not putting up between you and the superintendent of schools, should be putting up a fight.
Well,
we can't afford them because some towns are doing this, that they don't want to accept them, and you're probably going to say, we have to take them. But Martha's Vineyard, last year, they flew a plane load of them in there at nighttime. The next day, they get up, they fed them donuts, coffee, and everything else, put them on a ferry back to Cape Cod.
Well, I want to be clear,
Because,
Peter.
you know, it's okay for you, but not in my backyard.
So there's a statewide issue, there's a national issue, and we all need Congress to act on an immigration
Yeah, no
law.
kidding.
When they send an immigration law to the president, he said, I guarantee, I promise I'll sign it. But in order to fight, as you say, Joe and I are on the phone every day with the administration, but we have to deal with facts. We're paid $104 a day for this, which is the same amount we get paid for our own students, okay? We're not going into our pocket to pay more for them than we get reimbursed for. The second point is you referred to families that are homeless. Every family in the state can make a call today to the state and say, I'm homeless, and they'll be given shelter by 4 o'clock. So if they're homeless, it's not because there's not a program there for them. We're the only shelter-in-place state out of 50 states in the union. So you can make a call to the Department of Housing and get a hotel room for tonight or 3 hotel rooms for your entire family. So as Joe and I fight this fight, I would prefer not to call it a
All right,
fight.
we got to stop because I won't be able to rebel you when
But we have to deal
10
with
seconds left.
But we have to deal with facts. That's
Yeah,
all I ask.
But on the flip side of that, you know, it sounds good, but an actual person even trying to get health care,
Different issue.
they can't get it. And the housing is the same thing. They cannot get it. But if you're
Permanent
foreign born, you're in here, you skip over everybody. Thank you for listening to our show, and we'll pick up on this conversation another time with our town manager. But I like to pick on him. But anyways, thank you for watching.
But we're good friends.
Thank you for coming on, Tom.
Always, Peter.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.